Are we ready to
Yeah, I
go?
think we're ready to go.
All right, let's do it. I'm Barry Cates. Before I introduce our amazing group of panelists, I want to make an apology to everybody in the audience. I'm sorry that you're sitting in such shitty chairs and we get the good ones. So if you haven't had an opportunity to sit in a good chair, the world's first dynamically ergonomic chair, see us afterwards. Maybe we can work something out. Okay, just as a very quick starter, I'm Barry Cates. I am a recently retired professor of industrial and interaction design at Stanford and California College of the Arts, and I am now enjoying my early retirement, or belated retirement, in which I get to do interesting things such as moderate a panel with a pretty extraordinary group of experts. So here's what you can expect in the next 45 minutes or so. We have been undergoing what's probably the most dramatic transformation of work environments since peasants began to move from farms to factories, mostly in Britain about 250 years ago. And the significance of that was not simply a change of venue, a change in the location of where people were working. It was a fundamental transformation of civilization. It changed cities, it changed the definition of work, it changed the definition of the self, it changed our concepts of freedom. And I think it is not too much of an exaggeration to say that we are today in the midst of a transformation as fundamental as what we saw when industrialization began to move people from farms to factory cities, and all of the rest. And that's driven by a couple of things, one of which is obviously the post-COVID, post-pandemic transformation of the concept of the office. And the second, which is why that we're all here today, is the advent of artificial intelligence. And just to put that in perspective, ChatGPT-4 was launched in November 2022, as everybody in this room knows. It was used 100 million times within 30 days, which is the fastest adoption of any technology in human history. So anybody who is thinking it's just a bubble, it's just a fad, good luck. I'm not the first person to point out that we can expect in the future there will be two types of companies. Companies that use AI and companies that don't exist. It is as that fundamental, like steam 200 years ago, electricity 100 years ago, the computer, and now artificial intelligence. So to help us figure this out and what it's got to do with the modern workplace, the work environment, and in fact our definition of work itself, we've put together a pretty amazing panel of experts. So let me introduce them to you briefly, and we'll get down to the business at hand. I think we're going to start with Dr. Gaojian Huang, if I may, who is a professor of, I want to get it right this time, Industrial and Systems Engineering at San Jose State University. And I'll be asking him in particular to tell us a little bit about what BAT means. Okay, so you're on notice. To Gaojian's left is Cameron Steele, who is affectionately known as the Ergo Lady, not the Ego Lady. She is mercifully not an egomaniac. For the last 17 years, Cameron, with a C, and I'll tell you why I'm specifying the spelling, has been advising companies and individuals, professionals in every walk of life on how work environments and the particular nature of their work environments can contribute to or detract from their physical health and their sense of well-being. Okay? All right, I think I'm going to leap right over to the far end. This is Cameron with a K, as distinct from Cameron with a C. Cameron Arshad is an expert in workplace and office design. He has advised and worked for numerous companies that are in the task seating and the contract furniture industry, and is, in my limited experience with Cameron with a K, a deep thinker about all matters pertaining to the changing work environments. And who have we got left? Excuse me, Dan? Dan Ahn, and again, another spelling lesson, sorry, A-H-N. Why do I spell it? Because Dan is the host of Honesty, which is probably the most popular and widely consulted podcast anywhere on all matters pertaining to workplace design, to the changing nature of the workplace. Last I looked, you were being followed by something like 80,000 people.
It's 100 something.
100,000, sorry. 100,001 since I'm about to sign up. So we're looking forward to Dan's comments. And finally, Jason Chen, who is, among many other roles, a customer insights advisor to the company that made the chair that we all have the good fortune to be sitting on, LiberNovo. Dan will be contributing his insights based on the changes that he's seeing in the industry. I got that right? All right, so let's get on with it. And I think, if I may, I would like to start by picking on Cameron with a C.
No problem.
Cameron, you've been in the business for 17 years, is that correct?
Just about that, yeah.
And what I'd like to know is, in the consultations and the advising that you have been doing, what has changed from the time that you started out as an ergonomics consultant to what you are seeing now? Tell us about some of the things that people are coming to you in order to, the problems they're coming to you in order to solve.
Absolutely, and boy have things changed. Oh, that's terrible. How about that? Is that better? Okay, good. Don't want to do that to anyone's ears. That is definitely a risk factor for hearing loss, and we don't need that. So when I first started in ergonomics, and I did so because I did have a workplace injury long before that, and met ergonomists who did my own workplace assessments and helped fix my issues, and I thought, hey, I want to do that. So I've dedicated the rest of my life, I think, to ergonomics as a specialty. When I first came in, it was a single workstation, employees going to the same place 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, and they had their desk and their chair and their monitor and their keyboard and mouse, and that was the place that we went to look if someone had a reported discomfort, fatigue, or potential injury, and it was one thing to concentrate on, find what was going on, and help them fix it. It seems so simple now. It wasn't simple. It never is simple. But now we have, thanks to the pandemic and all the other changes in our world, we have a lot more factors to look at if someone is reporting a fatigue or a discomfort or an injury. We have to look at least 2 workspaces for most people. They're working a hybrid schedule that takes them working from home at least 1, 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 days a week, as well as an office where they may have their own workspace in an office. They may have a hoteling space in the office that they share with others. They may be working at a coffee shop. There's just so many different ways to work now that were completely unexpected. Back in the day, you may get 1 day working from home if you were lucky, and we didn't worry too much about the risk factors there, but now it is a lot more complex. So if you ended up reporting say a wrist discomfort, which I hear every day, people reporting discomfort in the wrist, the neck, the back, you have to look at every place they work. And it is a much more complicated system of work. And we need to look at all of those factors and all the other things that the employees, the workers, do with their bodies that might not necessarily be just work-related either. So it's grown, and I love it, and I'm very happy to be in these complex diagnostic spaces. I feel like a detective sometimes. It's a lot of fun.
That's so interesting. So if you are in a traditional office environment and the fluorescent lights are flickering, you can complain to the boss that the lights are flickering. What do you do if you're working in Starbucks?
Go to a different Starbucks?
Good. We'll try that. Most of what Cameron has just been talking about has to do with what we would call physical ergonomics. That started in the 1940s when psychologists were helping pilots land safely after bombing missions in World War II. And they kept crashing their planes because the controls on the B-17 were all identical and improperly clustered. So we started thinking about ergonomics, a new science that accommodated objects to our bodies. But it's gone way beyond that now, and if I can pick on Cameron with a K for a moment, I've heard you talk about what you call cognitive ergonomics and even emotional ergonomics.
Yeah,
What the hell is that?
I was actually going to jump in earlier. I think when we think of ergonomics, we should be more expansive. So the physical is very important, but there's also emotional and cognitive. The joke that it reminds me of is from this person that used to actually work at Google as a UX designer. She's since then turned into a comedian, and she wrote something in the New Yorker a while back. And she wrote, because obviously Google's very interested in ergonomics and making sure the task shares are right. And she wrote, ergonomics is making sure your body's comfortable while you're dying inside. And I think it's, I mean, it's obviously meant as parody, but I think there is something there in that we need more than physical ergonomics to be able to be productive and have well-being. So to your original question, I think cognitive ergonomics are all the things that allow your mind to focus and do the work you need to do. So a simple example of that is you all are listening to us talk, and the first 30 seconds, the mic was acting up and it screeched. That actually is an interruption to your ability to focus because it's jarring. So limiting that allows for better cognition. Emotional ergonomics, I would say, is a little bit more, is exactly what the words say. It has to do with your emotions, and so psychological safety is important while you're working. Feeling like you're protected. Like you see this in the, like if you went out there in the lobby and tried to get on your laptop and work, I even observed it. Those that are in the middle of a space, unprotected without a wall behind their back, tend to like lean in and be a little bit more protective versus the people upstairs that were up against the walls, that level of emotional security. Now, you can expand on that. It's like having friends at work, feeling like you belong in the organization. Those are all emotional ergonomics. Cognitive, you could go on to talk about like lighting. You said at Starbucks, I would say that's in the cognitive world.
Yeah, I've seen people, for instance, in airports. We all spend a lot of time in airports waiting for one thing or another, but building little defensive fortifications out of pillows or pilfered bits of furniture or suitcases in order to create a protected environment. And that's, something emotional that is happening.
Right, and it goes back to our, biological training in that, it's being, I can't remember the name of the theory, but it's being perched on a plateau, being able to see. So it's like prospect refuge theory. The idea that you can prospect and see what can come up, but also you take refuge in having protection around you.
Yeah, that makes sense, because like if I'm behind somebody who has a screen open, I'm spying. Like I'm reading everything. So it makes total sense. Yeah, you want to feel a little protected.
Okay, I'm not sitting in front of you again.
Dan, can I ask you to follow up a little bit from
please.
an industry perspective? So, sorry. The lights are very bright. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing people very. Can you tell us how the industry is perhaps responding to some of these issues?
One thing I have seen, especially from LiberNovo, is that when we design a new product to be used in the workspace, we need to consider so many more factors now. Like Cameron with a C mentioned earlier, there's more than one workspace. Most people have at least two, one in their home office, one in their actual office. And so when we design a product, we will have to consider not only the physical comfort and the cognitive and emotional, but also the culture, the optics, right? How would someone look? How would someone feel? How would they fit into the work culture were they to be using any product that we'll be making? So that is one directional thing that I see the industry is rapidly responding towards the change and transformation in work currently. And Dan might have something to add.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jason. Sorry, you guys. Yeah, from the perspective of what you are responding to on your channel, from what you are hearing from the 100,001 people that are following you, what are some of the trends that you're seeing that suggest how the industry is responding?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I think for me, my primary audience is going to be people that are working from home to some degree, right? It could be full-time remote, hybrid remote, something along those lines. And I think, generally speaking, we see two things happening. The first one is going to be that more and more you see people, when they're at their workspace, when they're doing the stuff that they need to do for work, everybody I know that works remote to some degree, whatever, full-time, hybrid, whatever, they are doing something other than work at that desk area, right? That thing is playing multiple functions. So, and it's usually something significant. So it could be something along the lines of, yeah, I've got a lull between meetings. I'm gonna go ahead and hop on and play a game of Call of Duty. I'm gonna play some NBA 2K for a minute. And then it makes a lot of sense to do something like that because if an email comes up, if there's a fire to put out, I can immediately pivot and go back to work, right? I can do that in the same space. It doesn't make sense for me to pick up my laptop, go into my dedicated gaming setup space, play a game, bring it back, only to have to respond to emails. So doing all that in the same space makes sense. People are also working on side hustles, content creation, hobbies, things like that, all trading stocks, all in the same area. At the same time, we also see an unprecedented explosion of prices when it comes to space, right? And so what we're seeing more and more is that, hey, look, in the last 5 years, house prices have grown by 55%. And so space now comes at an ultra premium. And so all the more I think we need to, people are learning hey, I have to make the most efficient use of this space that I have. And so using that space to be both my work area, my creative outlet area, my place where I attempt to trade stocks and make money, right? A place where I yell at 13-year-olds while playing Call of Duty, right? It needs to play all those different roles at the same time. And I think, this is an AI summit. So I've been thinking, how do I incorporate AI into this? Because the wrong answer is AI furniture. That's terrifying, that's weird, gimmicky, a couch that can read your mind and pick itself up and move to where things are gonna be. I don't think that's the answer, right? But I do think that AI is just driving the need for a more efficient workspace a lot faster. The whole idea of AI is supposed to be, how do we become more efficient with our time, with my mental faculties, right? AI is supposed to take a lot of that burden off of me and give me time to be more human, to yell at more 13-year-olds when I'm playing game, to have time to make content, to have time to build the things that I want to build outside of work or even during work. The fact that I've got multiple agents that can do the job for me in a faster, more efficient way gives me time to be able to do those things more so during work, outside of work, all those things, right? And so I think AI is just driving us essentially into a place where we're finding the need for furniture and tools that we use in our home spaces to play a versatile role, just like that room is, just like that single desk is. And I think that's the kind of direction that AI, technology, all that is pushing us to, is how do we make a space as efficient as possible? Yeah.
Very, very interesting. You made an extremely important distinction between an AI furniture, which you described as a kind of a terrifying thought, and a piece of furniture that responds to the transformed workplace in the age of AI. That's a really fundamental distinction. I like that a lot. Turning to artificial intelligence. Again, the larger framework of this part of the inquiry is how our concepts of work, of efficiency, of productivity, even of the self, are changing under the impact of this extremely profound and far-reaching technology shift. So the person that I'd like to ask to speak about that is Gaojian Huang. professor at San Jose State University. Now, in the past, a professor of design might be helping students select fabrics and finishes and things of that sort. I would like you to describe just how dramatically different what you are doing is, in particular the lab that you are running, which goes by the acronym BAT. So you're up next in the batter's cage. What's BAT?
Yeah, I have a lot of like Batman collection, but that's BAT stands for Behavior, Accessibility, and Technology. So that's the lab I'm running, and then I also try to have a like startup to do this like AI for education and AI for workspace. But the main idea here is now we are living in a world like we try to have everything to be connected. So for example, yesterday when I was driving from Los Angeles, like using my Tesla, and then I was driving and at the same time I feel like, oh, such a waste of time. That's 6 hour driving, and then can this car just right now be automatic so that I can work, check my emails, and then I feel so hot, and then can the temperature be lower? Can the car smart enough to know my needs? And so that's the new norm. Like now, how can we let all the technology, all the interface, all the furniture, all the chairs, all the even the environment, the light, know our human needs, right? And here I want to throw in like 3 elements or keywords: human, system, and environment. So for humans, we know ourselves very well. We are so dynamic, like have different mental states, different physical states. For a quick example, like when we are working, we try to be focused, but at the same time, we can be emotional, get really unhappy about some certain emails or get some rejection letters from somewhere. And then, so in this case, so like we have desktops, we have like, we mentioned AI to be embedded in these systems. So can these systems know when we are unhappy, when we are not productive? Can they suggest us, for example, to take a break to get some coffee, right? Or our environment, so now we have a strong light on the stage, so can the environment know our needs as well, and then to adjust the lights, adjust the temperature of the room, and then adjust even the smell in the room, so everything. And so I think that's the new world, like we try to have human environment and all the interface or the system to be co-adapt and to human needs, and then co-learning to improve with each other.
And the BAT, which by the way stands for Behavior, Accessibility, and Technology. What are some of the projects that the lab is working on? Can you tell us anything specific?
Thank you. That's a good question. So one specific example is we try to develop a desktop AI or embodied intelligence. Well, now it's a popular term, but we try to have some like humanoid robots, but it doesn't really look like a human. But one quick example is the desktop lamp. It can be seated on the desk, and then they can learn human. For example, like the mental states, the whether or not they are in fatigue mode, or whether or not they are like unhappy, right? So learn human needs, and then they can talk to the environment. We have different sensors to learn like human like physiological measurements and different like even the work performance, and then connect to the environment. We have now like the smart home, and then we have like temperature control, we have the light control. So we try to develop a solution or some intervention to like overall goal, I think it's to improve human well-being as well as the productivity.
I see. Are you able to say anything about your plans for a startup, or is that all stealth?
Yeah, it's in the early stage, but yeah, if anyone here has money, you can talk to me. But I
You
think
look like
the
you got
main
money.
idea is we want, so not only the office, I think most of my research initially began with autonomous vehicles. We try to develop smart chairs like in the car, and then I think the main goal is the same. Try to learn human needs in real time, and then try to provide some solutions. So one thing we developed last year was a wearable device, for example, embedded on the smartwatch, which can vibrate to enhance humans' situational awareness, to learn more about what's going on in the environment. So if there's a car behind is getting super close, and then we can just use the wearable device vibration as well as the seat vibration to let people know which direction and then what's the speed of the surrounding vehicle. And also we try to think about like some smaller wearable device as well. But yeah, these are all the secrets. I cannot tell more, but yeah, we can talk about it if you are interested in collaboration.
Fantastic. What I'm hearing from all of you is that the boundaries are starting to collapse. Boundaries between work and home, boundaries between productivity and emotional comfort, boundaries between are you an employer or are you an employee or are you a parent dealing with a kid who's spending too much time, because the place that we're doing our work has become so fluid. Is that a correct assessment, Cameron?
I think so, but I wanted to jump in a little earlier and push back, not even push back, maybe
Push back,
nudge
push
sideways.
Push back. Don't be scared.
Couple of things to consider. One is like is a tool or a space that does everything preferable to one that's optimized for a very specific activity. Meaning, like if you have a space that's for video conferencing, it's fine-tuned for doing that activity. And I sometimes worry about programming too much into one technology or space. And I think it goes to sort of my allergic reaction to having completely seamless experiences. I think there is this thing as good friction, and good friction actually is cannon fodder for innovation, in my opinion. So as an example, I can sit at my laptop and work on a report, do a presentation, jump on a video conference call, send out emails, and I haven't gotten up the whole day. Now, there's a case to be made that that's a lot more seamless than having to hustle and look for a conference room or what have you. But it's also incredibly unhealthy. It's physically unhealthy, it's emotionally unhealthy, and I would say it's unhealthy for the organization you're in, and that this is where I go to the notion of like good friction. Organizations need culture to thrive, and in order to have culture, you need to have connection, you need to feel connected to those in the organization, and that doesn't happen by everyone being in their silos. It happens both through interaction, but by chance occurrences too. So I use this as an example because it's an actual client that we did work for, where at their espresso station, we specifically designed it so there weren't enough baristas, so a line would form. Now, intuitively, it seems like, oh, well, you don't want a line. But in an organization with multiple departments, you do, because people get in line, they have chance conversations, they meet people that they have weak ties with. And I think, so the pause isn't that we shouldn't try to optimize and we shouldn't try to program as much as we can into our tools and spaces, but that we should be mindful about what it is that creates those connections that actually leads to innovation.
And whenever there's a human connection, there will always be some friction.
Absolutely.
So this idea of a frictionless environment in which you've removed all obstacles, not necessarily a good thing. Jason, did you want to pick up on this idea of good friction and bad friction?
Yeah, just a slight build on Cameron's idea. Kind of bringing a little bit into the AI conversation as well. I've recently read one of my former coworker posting something about AI no longer is just as an agent, but AI as a partner. Define as thought partner, not life partner. That would be a little weird, I think. But think about AI as something that can have stimulating conversation or brainstorming session with you 24/7. They don't need a break necessary, right? But in order to have a good discussion with your partner, you need friction, like Cameron said, right? You need your partner to push back to you or sideways to you, right? It cannot just keep on feeding your idea if it is in the quote unquote wrong direction or the unproductive direction. So I think when it comes to intellectual conversation or innovation, friction, as in the brainstorming and discussion space, it is very much necessary as well.
Yeah, interesting. Gaojian, does that correspond in some ways to the evolution that you have seen in AI from, how have you like to put it, from advisor to co-pilot to guardian?
Since Jason mentioned a very good idea, like we treated AI now, we no longer treat them as a machine or technology, but it's more like a human or like a collaborator. In the past year, so we developed a framework, so the advisor AI, co-pilot AI, and guardian AI. So the main idea to develop this framework, overall it's called triadic human AI collaboration framework. So the reason why we try to have this is just like when we treat a human teammates. So these human teammates, they can do different things for us, and then we don't want AI to be like designed to be like one fit all like solution to help us to do like a predefined actual things. So for example, like when we are working and we try to be productive, but sometimes we don't. And then the AI can be the advisor to tell us, oh, now it's time to take a break, to give us the suggestion. And then the co-pilot AI can do some partial assistance, like when we are writing an article, and then this co-pilot can do the proofreading or a grammar check for us. That can reduce our workload. And then the guardian AI can be more like be the guardian by the name, right? So we try to let guardian AI to override human input. Just like if this AI teammate, they know, oh, this person has too much workload, they need to take a break. And then this guardian AI can lock the computer monitor and then prevent the people continue working so that humans have to like take a break. So we try to have AI to play in different roles and then to help humans in real time.
So our whole concept of productivity is undergoing really massive transformation. There's a little story, if I can share it. We have a colleague at Stanford named Nicholas Bloom, a professor at the Graduate School of Business, who's been doing a fascinating body of research starting way before the pandemic hit about working from home and whether that makes us more or less productive. I don't know if you know about his work, but he had a Chinese graduate student named James Liang who finished his MBA, returned to China, and in Shanghai started what is now China's largest travel agency, Ctrip, which is very, very famous. And they did an experiment in which they had half of the people working in the office as usual, half of them working from home, and they measured the productivity of each, found people working from home were slightly more productive, but then as a control, they reversed the two groups. If you were in the office, go home. If you were at home, go to the office. Same result, people working from home, slightly more productive. And then they did a third test in which they said, you choose. So if you're more comfortable working from home every day, do it. If you miss the congenial quality of the office, go to work every day. If you want to work at home on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, go meet with your team on Thursday and do an offsite on Friday. And what they found is productivity soared. In other words, if you have enough respect for the people that you hire to let them figure out the meaning of productivity, that's where the big payoff comes. So, we only have a few minutes left, and I would like, in our closing minutes, to turn the conversation from what's going on now to what you are seeing in the future. So I'd like to ask, and I think I'm going to just throw this out at the five of you, what is the workplace of the future going to look like? What will the office look like in 10 years? Anybody want to take a shot at that?
Well, I guess since I started, I could say that what I would like to see.
Even better.
All right. What I would like to see, I just started using, I want to say one thing about the present day. I just started using something I've been recommending for a long time, which along the lines of what you were talking about is a RSI guard reminder, break reminder on my computer. I always thought I didn't need it. I'm the ergonomist. Of course I'm going to have perfect habits. I don't at all. So I put the reminder on my computer, and now I have it reminding me to take breaks. It's very simplistic. It tells me when I've been typing for a long period of time, and maybe to pause for 10 seconds, little helpful reminders that just pop up on the screen, and it looks almost like it was written in the 90s. Like it's just got this cool little thing that's very nostalgic looking. It's not sophisticated, but I'll be darned if it doesn't work, because it tells me to take my hands off my mouse for 10 seconds. Very cool. I would love to see that next level interaction with AI that knows what I've been doing in a little bit more of a sophisticated way, and tells me not only questions, are you sitting back in your chair with good back support, but to know that I'm not, because I always have to remind people to sit back in your chair and use the backrest the way it's supposed to be, get your good back support to take the pressure off. If the whole workstation interacted to know what my bad habits were and to remind me to use the good ones, that would be amazing for people's bodies, so that they could feel that better productivity through the better health.
Yeah, thank you for that. Dan, do you want to jump in on what you are seeing in industry trends that might give you a sense of where things are going? What is the future of work going to look like?
I'm gonna change it over. I'm gonna send it over to Cameron while I think about it a little bit more. Cameron, you look like yes.
Sure.
Sorry, I wasn't sure.
I'll talk about the future using an analogy. So a while back, I was with a client. After the lunch, they brought out these amazing chocolate chip cookies, and I'm not a dessert person, but even I had to admit it was like the best chocolate chip cookie I've ever had. And it made me curious, and I think, and stay with me, this is gonna make sense in a minute. What I noticed was that the chocolate chip cookies were sprinkled with these like salt flakes. A chef friend of mine told me that that's the quality of salt. It actually brings out and enhances and elevates the flavor of the things that it's combined with. And it started me thinking about the history of salt, that for millennia, salt was used primarily to preserve food. Up until 100, 150 years ago, the primary reason was to preserve food. And then came along refrigeration and canning, and then salt slowly changed its reason for being. And I would argue it returned to its original reason for being, which is the elevation of taste. And you can see this sort of play out in everyday culture in that, you know, everywhere. I mean, Trader Joe's has pink Himalayan salt. My corner store has gray salt. Like, salt is about flavor and enhancing food. So this is a long way of coming back to the idea of the relevance of an office or a workplace. So the workplace, if you trace its history, it goes back to the factory floor, and then the secretary pool, and then cubicle land. And I think in all of those iterations, it's essentially thought of as a container for where you do your work. And I think there's an opportunity to change that and figure out what the new pink Himalayan salt version of the office is, one that acts more as a platform for creating impact. And this is where, like, I think actually there is something to be said for like being physically together. You mentioned Nick Bloom's research. I know him and I know his research, but a lot of that work that is better done at home is what I would call me work. So it doesn't require a lot of collaboration. It doesn't require eye contact and reading people's body language and so forth. The opposite is true for work that is, you know, we work. MIT Neurology did a study where they saw that like face-to-face interaction versus video conference interaction, the brain is actually more engaged and activated when you're seeing a person in real life. So that's something to consider in terms of where the future is. I think you're gonna see a lot less offices that have the traditional workspaces, and you're gonna have offices that are meant to promote connection and camaraderie. That's my...
Enhancing
Yeah.
the way salt enhances,
Exactly.
rather than simply adding flavor.
I've got some
You got your
semblance of
thought?
an answer now. So this maybe I'm just being overly optimistic here, but I think part of me hopes that in 10 years that, you know, we have this saying in like the YouTube world where it's called like touching grass. So it just means to like go outside and go experience the real world. You know, part of me hopes that in 10 years that, you know, AI would be seen, or we'll have developed AI to be an actual productivity partner as opposed to shoving it down every single product because it's the buzzword and it counts for SEO, right? To find actual practical applications so that it frees us up to step out of the offices. Because as far as I know, and Cameron, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but so much of this office space design has been done to herd people into the building to keep them there for as long as possible. Right? Like, why do you think, I remember listening to this one woman and I was like, what is she talking about? Where she talked about how she designed a chair and it said, where did you get your inspiration from? And she said, moss and mushrooms. And I remember thinking, what in the, who is this made for? You know, but then another person explained it to me. He said, basically, as humans, we feel most recharged when we're out in nature. That's why when you guys take a vacation, you don't go like, I'm taking a vacation, going right back into the office, right? When you go on vacation, you go out into the world, out into nature, you experience it, you come back refreshed. And a lot of these guys, what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring the outside into you so that you feel refreshed while working, which I think is an ironic statement. And so I would love to see that as AI matures and develops, that as it takes on more of the productivity and mental energy away from us, that it frees us up to be more creative, frees us up to be more human, frees us up to maybe step outside of the workplaces that we've consolidated and made super efficient to make people work as long as possible, to help free up some of that so that people can actually be people. And that we can be more human. And so that, man, I don't know, that's a very, very idealistic picture of AI, but, or maybe I'm just very idealistic, but I would love to see that be the direction. And again, my channel is focused on like home office furniture and ergonomics and chairs primarily, but I would love to see if my business took a drop because that was the trend. Like, it sounds kind of weird, but I'd love to see the people stop caring so much about their space and their chair because they're able to go outside, they're able to do some other things other than just work all day.
That's not good news for commercial real estate.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I think the last word goes to Jason then.
Yeah, I know we are running out of time, so just quickly built on what you all have been talking about. I totally agree. I think the future of workspace and work is about intentional gathering. It's all about connection with one another. I see that a lot, like a ton in my space where productivity software right now, it's a lot of it at least, about how do we help folks summarize or actionize, if that's a word, their meeting, the next thing, so that we can use our time together to discuss things rather than writing things down, doing all of those menial planning, things like that. So that's a very huge space that I see that is very much happening and a ton of money being poured into. And yeah, so that's my last comment. It's about intentional gathering.
Thank you all for that. I think that if I were to extract maybe just one big takeaway about the transformations of the workplace in the age of artificial intelligence, it's not about how do we pump AI into everything that we do, but how do we respond to a total environment that is being transformed by this extraordinarily powerful new technology. And the five of you have given us, I think, an extraordinary insight from a technical point of view, from a human point of view, from a spatial point of view, and on and on and on. So I would like to thank you for an extremely stimulating conversation, and I would ask the audience to thank them as well.
Thank you, Barry.
I hate to get up.
These chairs really are comfortable. If you haven't tried them
Come
yet,
to our
please do.
booth.
shake your hand.
I'm being practical about it.